this is our first show for the 2023-2024 academic year. And today we're going to look at entrepreneurship in a corporate setting. And we're going to talk to an individual who has huge responsibilities for a big corporation. And we're going to get his insights about how entrepreneurship works in a very, very large corporation. I'd like to welcome Myles Robinson. Myles is a group buyer in books for Walmart, and so he works for Walmart. He's worked for Walmart. I read over his resume, and it looks like about 8 years. Now, Myles has an unusual background from his academic affairs. I looked at it. He's got a degree, a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in accounting. And then when he went to Walmart, he was an auditor and he was working in accounting. And then suddenly he made this huge leap over to marketing and merchandising. So the first question I have for you, Myles, is how did someone spend 5 or 6 years studying accounting and getting your CPA certificate, your license, which is very difficult to do. And then all of a sudden I see you marketing all types of things. So tell us about that journey.
Yeah, great question. So my decision going into college was to get a degree that I knew could be applicable to a ton of different types of roles outside of college. So got my CPA because I wanted to go through from start to finish. Haven't been the quitting type. And so I had the hours, had the master's in accounting, thought the CPA was just a kind of a bow on the present of my time in school. So did accounting for just a little bit, like you said. I think there's always been entrepreneurial drive within me. So even though today I work in a corporate setting, long-term I have aspirations to do my own thing. And so accounting gives a great business foundation that can be utilized in entrepreneurial endeavors or in corporate finance and P&L managing roles.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. The thing I always tell young entrepreneurs is, it's not necessarily a bad idea or it's not necessarily bad execution. Many times the reason why businesses fail is because of cash flow problems, that people don't understand what cash flow means, and accountants obviously know what it means. Even though they do accrual accounting, they always thinking about cash flows, because you can stay in business and not make money. Well, you can stay in business and not make a profit, but you can't stay in business without having positive cash flow or having enough cash. So I understand the accounting thing very, very well. Let's switch specifically, not that your accounting years at Walmart were important. Well, let's just say, I don't think it's so much marketing as it is merchandising. So basically what you're doing is you're deciding what the products are that Walmart's going to offer across a whole skew of things. Tell me what interested you and how you got involved in all of that.
Yeah, so for me, entrepreneurship really was the driving factor. So I would say for anybody taking this class, if you have an entrepreneurial drive, you don't necessarily know what you want to do on your own. Going into corporate buying is an avenue for you to exercise those muscles of making financial decisions, understanding your market, understanding your customer demographic, creating product types, testing products in the market, right? MVP, all those things. So it's an insulated way to fulfill that entrepreneurial drive and learn a ton of valuable lessons that can be applied later on. A joke I always had with friends of mine who are similar is, the worst case scenario for a buyer is that you get fired. You're not going to go bankrupt, right? Entrepreneurs can go bankrupt if they mismanage their investments, but worst case as a buyer, you're going to get fired. And so for me, it was a safe, relatively speaking, way to fulfill that entrepreneurial itch and learn a ton about managing a large P&L for a big organization.
Let's drill down to that, because I love the idea of what you said about the two things I think are really, really important. One is testing things out. In other words, you get to test certain products and everything like that and learn from them. Give me an example of where you've actually done that, where you've tested out an idea about buying a product and then offering it Walmart.
Yeah, sure. So one relevant to the current desk I buy. So I've been the books buyer for almost 2 years. And about 2 years ago, we had the idea to test comic books. So manga and anime are very popular. That business is doing incredibly well for us, but we wanted to test traditional comic books, Batman, Spider-Man, stuff like that. And so we essentially worked with our team to slice out 100 stores and say, for the next 6 months, we want to change the assortment in these stores, and we want to bring in traditional comic books. We wanted to see if they were going to be as productive as the items that were currently in their place. End result is they were not. So, not every test is a success. So this was a test where we tested out the idea. Could we grow our business incrementally with traditional comic books? Results were poor. So what I had replaced was actually more productive than what I brought in. And so we've actually, dialed back that test because it wasn't worth expansion. So we had good insights that came from that. And the only way to learn is to actually do it, right? So we can sit here and speculate and, the data says this and the customer appetite says that, but are my assumptions actually correct? Or am I kind of too in the weeds and I'm missing something?
Right. Well, that's fascinating. As an old comic book person, the DC and Marvels, the traditional comic books that I grew up with as a kid, Superman and Batman and then Spider-Man and everything. DC and Marvel were the two traditional, and they fought it out over a 40-year period. But today, I guess more of your audience is going to these non-traditional comic books and from your experiment and everything. So now what you're doing is you're just going to be having these other comic books in your stores. It's probably going to be a lot the margins are going to be higher with these non-traditional comic books. And I said it's going to be easier to reach your audience, these younger people that are coming up, Gen Zs and everything like that. Okay, so you've done this, you found out a lot of things and everything. How supportive is Walmart with these experiments and these tests?
Yeah, so very, very supportive. So I would say Walmart has a phenomenal culture of ideation, testing, and failing fast. So Sam Walton was a component of failing fast. There are tons of different types of business models that Walmart has tried and failed at over the years. I believe one of them was a furniture store that we tried and it didn't work out well. But the whole ethos of Walmart is have an idea, vet it out, execute quickly via a test, and then if the test is successful, expand it rapidly. So Walmart does a great job fostering that entrepreneurial spirit because they give buyers the leeway to fail with an understanding that that's part of progress.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. If you were, a lot of the things that we've just gone over and we've talked about and everything have been about internal entrepreneurship. In other words, testing and experimenting. Is Walmart interested at all in external, in other words, buying up companies and bringing them in, or what had they rather do it internally and do it that way?
So at a corporate level, they do both. So I'm not privy to a ton of the specifics around, M&A, merging and acquisitions, but Walmart has done a lot of procuring of startups within tech, within AI, within all these kind of future-looking technologies to ensure that as a company, we're not falling behind. And sometimes buying that innovation is the fastest way to achieve it, right? So they foster entrepreneurship a lot, but there is advantages of bringing in the actual entrepreneurs, either by buying the company or bringing them in as consultants to help guide our corporate direction.
Right. Not that I'm against, acquiring firms, but everybody always believes that there's going to be these great, synergistic impacts, and they never seem to happen when there's a merger or an acquisition, or I seldom see these synergistic effects. So I'm
Yep.
much more of an internal person than am an external person, but I'm always interested to hear about people's successes as far as external entrepreneurship goes.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think when you're bringing in another company, there could be culture difference, right? And culture is incredibly important to kind of maintain the longevity of a business, and so um, it doesn't always work out. You could be buying this shiny thing that you think is going to fix all your issues, when you realize it's not nearly as shiny as you once thought it. So there's countless examples of times where we've partnered with somebody, it hasn't worked, and we've had to offload that partnership. Bonobos is one of the recent examples. It was a high end men's fashion company that Walmart bought, since divested out of it because it just didn't really align to our customers' wants and desires.
Right. All right. So let's just talk a little bit about books in your area of expertise. And what I would like to talk about is trends. You've got to be you've got to be as someone who's in charge of merchandising and assortment in this area. You've got to be on top of trends. So let's talk about trends. So right now, I read a statistic the other day that said that within the last year, 20% of the population had listened to an audiobook within the last year.
Yeah.
That is huge. I had no idea.
Yeah. So audiobooks they're definitely growing, but the size of the prize is still relatively small. So I think the last time I looked, they're less than 10% of the publishing industry. It's still a medium that you have to have available for your customers. So I essentially want my customer to be able to listen to a book, read a book, download it to a device. Any way they want to ingest the information, I want to be a conduit for that. So I would say that the challenge I have specifically is the dominance that Amazon has within books. So they started as a bookseller. To them, that's their grocery. So, Walmart is a grocer. We're not going to lose on bananas. We're not going to lose on milk. We're not going to lose on eggs because that drives people to our stores. Amazon is not going to lose on books. So they will price incredibly aggressive to ensure that kind of their founding principles of being a bookseller initially are never lost. So when it comes to complications within that area, Amazon owns Audible, which is the number one audiobook.
That's my next question.
Walmart corporately, we do not market and we do not offer Audible to our customers because we take the stance of we want to create competition, not bring Amazon into the Walmart fold. And then when you talk digital books, Amazon also owns Kindle, which has a dominant market share in e-reader devices. So Walmart thrives in the brick and mortar environment. So, the vast majority of my sales are actual books versus digital equivalents. But it's still something we have to understand the trend for, because hypothetically, if in the next 3 to 5 years that business is looking to grow exponentially, we want to make sure that we're pivoting our business model, that we're thinking about ways that we can get into that arena in a more impactful way than we're at today.
Right. Well, right now, books, actual hard books, make up about 65% of the total market share. So if you're talking about just physical books, it's still 65% of the market are just hard books.
Yeah.
Well, the other disturbing trend, well, not disturbing, but it is happening over the last 4 years. The market has shrunk by about 3%.
Yep.
So the total book market is more, down. I think it's about 3.3, but let's not quibble. Does that worry you in any way that you've got a shrinking market?
So not necessarily. Early on in my career, I managed declining categories that were down 15, 20% a year. And those are challenging because you're essentially planning your exit of the business. Thankfully, when we look at market data and 5-year forecast, 10-year forecasts, we're talking about a delta of 1% to 2% up or down from where we're at today. So I would say there's been a decline, mainly because the volume in 2020 was so astronomical. In 2021, some of the highest years of sales on record for just hard books. So the decline is kind of, it's not a big surprise. We have to kind of level set demand to the 2019 level, and currently we're running above that trend. Mm-hmm. So I would say we're leveling out. I view books as a legacy category in the sense that it'll always be relevant. It might shift from digital to physical over time, but the need for content, I think, is here to stay, at least for the medium term. I always joke with my team, the Bible was written thousands of years ago, so books have been around for a bit.
Good joke. Let's talk about summary platforms, if you don't mind.
Okay.
That's another area. I don't think it's going to hurt book sales, but I think it's going to have some kind of impact. So what do you think? What's going to happen there with that new medium and that new innovative technique? We can talk about blinking or whatever you want to talk about. I don't care.
Yeah. Do you have some specifics that because I'm not as privy into summary software.
Like Blinkist is the big one right now. Okay. And basically what they do is you buy a subscription service and they summarize books, and depending upon what type of service that you subscribe to, you can get either so many books or you can get an unlimited number of book summaries. So what they do is they'll summarize a book that maybe, 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Okay.
So that business is growing. The summary business is growing. I don't know how much of an impact that's going to have or not on actual book sales, but it is increasing at a tremendous rate.
Got it. Yeah. So anytime there's innovation, I'm of the thought that we should be leaning into innovation, not being afraid of it. So in the event that subscription-based summary businesses start taking off and start having more of a pull in the industry, I would want to find ways where Walmart can connect with those individuals to have a piece of the pie. So innovation is great for businesses. I know that with AI, like to me, AI is a bigger, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a bigger factor in change within books, with the ability to create AI generated content. What happens to a model where now there's no editors, there's no graphic designers because and AI is doing everything. But that aside, I think you have to know where the competition is at. You have to know where innovation is going, and you should not be afraid of rolling up your sleeves and learning about it and finding ways to be a part of it.
Right. Okay, let's talk about AI. You brought it up.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I'm going to go there with you. I think it's a great thing to talk about because you're right. AI is going to get rid of. You could have theoretically you could have AI generate mystery books or generate kids books or whatever you'd wish. Where do you think this is going to lead us?
Yeah, so I don't think mass adoption is there yet. I think AI is definitely the buzzword of the year, and I think it's doing a lot of amazing things. Like I'm a fan of artificial intelligence and how it can supplement a role or supplement a business. I think it's going to come down to customers' appetite for AI generated material. Today, when we look at products at Walmart, one of the things we do a lot is we highlight if it's made in America, because we know that a lot of customers want to support U.S. manufactured goods versus internationally created goods. Could there be a future where made by human is a sellable marketing angle? Like, it's not made by AI, this is made by a human. You should pay a higher price for it because there's more authenticity to it. So I think AI definitely has the potential to disrupt publishing, but I also know that there's retailers, there's certain publishing groups that are taking a hard stance against accepting AI generated material within their portfolios. I just don't know if that's going to last. It only takes one publisher to see the potential benefit of using it in certain niche cases to kind of open the door for AI to be a bigger influence within publishing.
Right. I agree. I agree. So let's talk about some things now we talked about some potential threats. Or
Yeah.
they may not be threats, but they could be threats. Let's
Yep.
talk about some things which are that are happening right now in the marketplace, which are going to be opportunities for you guys. And the biggest opportunity that I can see is consolidation in the book market, because you've got so many small book sellers going out of business. Local business, local bookshops are closing. Like where I live here in Shippensburg, we used to have a bookstore here. We've got a Walmart now, and the Walmart sells all the books, and the bookstore closed. Where do you see that? And it's definitely happening. There's tremendous consolidation going on in the book selling business.
Yeah, so I think that's inevitable of a competitive landscape. And so it's interesting because when I look at my business, I'm mainly benchmarking against Target, Barnes & Noble, and Amazon. But the reality is the pricing I have when competing with those people might inadvertently put a smaller bookstore out of business because I'm selling at a discounted rate to where maybe they're selling at full MSRP because that's the only feasible way for them to pay rent and pay for their business. So I think consolidation is likely inevitable. As far as it impacts Walmart, we have a very unique advantage in that we have real estate or Walmart supercenters within 10 miles of 95% of Americans. So for us, it's not will we be near people? We will be, but it's are we offering something that's more competitive than other options?
Let's talk for a moment about where you see things moving. Now, I know I read over your LinkedIn page and everything, and you've opened up a lot of new assortments.
Yeah,
lots of new assortments. So, where do you think the next set of assortments that are out there that you can go into and maybe increase your sales or capture more market share and things like that? I know you went to LBGTQ and did a great job there. But are there others out there that you're looking at? If you don't want to share them with me right now, that's fine.
No,
company secrets. I'm not looking for you to spill your guts.
Yeah. I would say to go to your first point, when I first started, the obvious assortment need was creating a modular or creating an assortment that was representative to my entire customer base. So 13% of customers that shop at Walmart identify as LGBTQ plus. My assortment didn't really represent that customer well. So for my team, it was a easy data-driven decision to bring my customers what they want because every type of person shops at Walmart for groceries. And so I want to make sure that they can find something that they relate to on the book aisle. As far as future trends, nothing we're seeing right now that's super disruptive that we're putting our chips on the table and betting on. For Walmart, how we're going to win in the coming years is really maintaining our promise of the lowest price point, specifically in our sub $5 section. So, Dollar General and Family Dollar around us have moved a lot of their price points up to $1.25, while we're still maintaining 98 cents, 97 cents, and $1 flat on coloring books, entry-level workbooks, flashcards, things like that. So I think in the next couple of years, we really need to make sure that the U.S. understands Walmart is committed to maintaining aggressive price points and fighting against inflation to just create a loyal customer base that will continue to shop with us even when the economy becomes better.
Okay. Let me just say this, Myles. I can think of a really risky strategy for the next year and a half, and I'll let you in on it, but it's extremely risky. Political books. The thing is on both sides.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you right now, for the next year and a half, there's going to be, I think there's going to be a lot of political books being sold. The problem is you're going to have to carry both sides, because but I think I personally see that as a big opportunity. I think there's going to be a lot of biographies about candidates, ghost-written biographies or autobiographies or whatever you want to say. And then I think this 2024 election however you feel about it,
Yeah.
is going to be, I think it's going to be a lot of interest and a lot of books to be sold in that space.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that. You're 100% right. So I've already committed to products through the end of this year, and some of them, when they release and you see the titles, are very incendiary. Like it's
That's great.
yeah, it's one side of the aisle letting you know exactly what they think about the other side of the aisle. And to your point, I serve all customers. So, my team, they have varying beliefs, varying political opinions, but we're unified in the sense that we buy for our customer regardless of what their opinions are. So I'm going to assort books that lean one way. I'm going to assort books that lean the other way, because ultimately, whatever your opinions are, I want to make sure that you can find something that you resonate with.
Right. It's the old statement that about what Michael Jordan said about Air Jordans. He says, they're angry with him because he was appealing to Republicans to buy these shoes. He said, "Well, Republicans like basketball shoes too."
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Right. Like, yep.
You gotta go with both sides of the aisle, especially when we're split probably 50-50 right down the middle. So,
yep.
All right. So I'd like to talk about where you want to go, and I don't want you to say anything about about leaving Walmart or anything like that, but where do you see your future? I mean, to me, you've got some great entrepreneurial insights and things like that. So, I mean, I can see you going just about anywhere, but where do you see yourself going with all of this?
Yeah. So, love Walmart as a company. Obviously, I've been here for 8 years, and I wouldn't stay around if I didn't enjoy it. I would say in the short term, so next 3 to 5 years, continuing at Walmart, trying to elevate leadership, elevate areas of responsibility. There's so many things that you can influence at Walmart. There's so many businesses you can buy that influence the market at scale, that it's a really fun place to be, because you have a lot of ownership. You're managing a significant P&L. You're managing large teams. And so I really enjoy that aspect of the job. I would say 5 to 10 years out, that's when I'll probably have a gut check, see where I'm at. Should I move out of Walmart? Should I do something more, cut and dry entrepreneurial? But I do enjoy where I'm at right now. I have a phenomenal leadership team that's really driving transformation within the area. So I'm happy where I'm at. I'm happy to tell other people that Walmart is a great opportunity if you have an entrepreneurial spirit and you want to kind of test the waters in a corporate environment.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this: there's all kinds of great stories about purveyors and suppliers and everything going to Walmart to pitch their goods. I know you've sat in on probably tons of these meetings.
Yeah.
Can you, without mentioning any names or products or anything, can you talk about, what makes a good pitch and what makes a bad pitch? I mean, that's, to me, if you go to Walmart and get your product, into Walmart, that's huge for a supplier or manufacturer. And it's got to be someone who's on the other side of the table that's watching all these pitches. I'd just be interested in your insight for all of that.
Yeah, great question. And it's funny, I've had huge corporations give terrible pitches. So it's not just because you're a no-name supplier doesn't mean you're making the worst pitch out there. So, feel good about yourself if you're invited to Walmart for open call. But the most successful pitches are businesses that are incredibly honest about the value they provide, where they win, and where they lose. So I've sat through hundreds of supplier meetings, and the joke I always tell my team is every single supplier tells me they're number one. Well, that's not true, right? And buyers can easily smell kind of that false marketing scheme of hey, well, we're number one. Well, if you're number one, and I just talked with Bill and he's number one, right? Who's number one? So great suppliers understand where they add value. They've taken the time to walk into a Walmart store to see the items I've already assorted and to challenge me on my assortment and my strategy, and then find ways to say, hey, and here's how I fit into that strategy. So I've given a lot of business to suppliers that were small when I first started, that have now grown to be a lot larger companies because their team rolled up their sleeves. They went to the stores. They say, okay, I know that you're carrying this item and here's your retail price. I could give you that exact same item because I bought the item. My product team ripped it apart. We quoted out every single component and I could retail it for you 10% cheaper. And here's the margin I could go out at. So those type of suppliers are really tactical about how they're approaching it. On the flip side, I've had plenty of conversations with people that are like, hey, I wrote a book. It'd be really great if you bought the book. You're not really leaving me with anything as to why I should. It's more of just a plea like, hey, change my trajectory by just deciding to hold my hand and bring me in. You have to have some angle as to why I should consider your book or your product over the hundreds and thousands of others that I'm getting sent, weekly. So really know the customer and really know what your brand or your business is trying to accomplish. Don't ebb and flow just to try to get a yes, because that's going to be very unsustainable. You're not going to have a long-term success if you're just trying to read the buyer and do what they say if it's against your company.
Right. I like that because, so many entrepreneurs that, they're out there, or small businesses or even large businesses, like you say, they don't even take the time to go out into the store and see the other products and services in the assortment that they're going to be competing against, or where they're going to add more value for the customer, whether it be a lower price or whether it be, better features or whatever it might be, more status or whatever it might be. It seems to me that would be the first step you should take. Where does my product fit into their portfolio?
Yeah.
But so many people don't do that. All right. So what's the worst? You just alluded to part of it where somebody says, I just wrote this book and I want you to, buy it. What is the worst pitch that you no names? I mean, we're not going to be mean.
But I instantly know. Like you're like, what's the worst pitch? All right, I have the story.
Okay, go ahead.
Won't give any names, but it's a large company. They've done this plenty of times, so it should have gone way better than it went. But typically in buying, you have two different meetings a year. They're called line reviews, where you sit down with a supplier. You look at the sales they've done year to date. You look at areas of opportunity, things that we need to work on. And then they'll spend the rest of the meeting walking through innovation, future ideas, their strategies, their marketing plans, essentially trying to say, hey, here's what we've done. Here's what we can do. Had a meeting on the books with this supplier for 2 months. So they had a ton of time to present. The people in the meeting were high ups in the company. So kind of C-suite level participants. We had an hour-long meeting set aside to go through all this stuff. And then when I got into the meeting, I was like, all right, let's start going through the line review deck. And they're essentially like, well, what are you talking about? I was like, well, this is a line review. I sent out exactly what I wanted. I sent you all these, essentially a very detailed agenda of everything I need. And they're like, oh, we had no idea. We just thought we'd kind of talk about a couple items and hear your thoughts on them. And so needless to say, I said, okay, well, we're not going to have this meeting anymore. I'm going to cancel the meeting right now, save ourselves time. And I said, 2 weeks from now, I want you to read the email. I want you to do the things I said in the agenda, or else the partnership is not going to be as strong as you think it's going to be. So, I essentially had to kind of guide them like, hey, there's a ton of people vying for this business. You've essentially shown me that you don't really care about the business and that you think you're just going to maintain your percent of my store just because you are who you are. And I was like, that's not how it's going to happen. So,
this is what I don't understand about manufacturers and suppliers. And I'm just amazed. The thing is they don't see shelf space in your stores as any value. In other words, they see it as theirs. And we've got this much shelf space, and this is what we've been allotted, and this is what we're going to stay in into the future for as long as possible, right?
Yep.
And they don't see the value of it.
Right. And that's why competition is essential, right? And so having a competitor come in do the due diligence, try to challenge one of these bigger players. It's the easiest way to get the incumbent supplier to kind of straighten up is to say, hey, your points of distribution are going down next year. I've already committed to the other product, just FYI, right? You have a call with them and you say, hey, all these plans you thought we're going to have, let's table that for a year because you don't have the space anymore. And then there's this scramble of, oh, I have no idea. Well, what do you mean? Well, what can we do to get the space back? When in reality, it's everything they haven't been doing is why they didn't have the space. So a great job is giving, if I'm deleting a supplier, if I'm reducing a supplier, I'm letting you know 6 months in advance. I'm not pulling the rug out from you the weekend before because that's just not good business. But I never cease to be amazed how many suppliers are shocked when they've essentially written their own fate by inaction, lack of innovation, lack of care and effort.
Yeah. Well, prior to becoming a teacher at SHIP, I spent 30 years owning businesses, and I worked in research and consulting, and so I did a lot of consulting and everything. And I'm not going to give you the names of this because they're way too familiar. But I once had a pitch where I went into this. We did a bunch of research for this company, and this brand. It wasn't a company; it was a brand. And we went in, and we said the average age of your buyer. This is in the early 90s, by the way, is like 63, and no one under 40 will buy this particular brand. No one under 40, it's not even in their consideration set. So, in other words, I'm just telling you right now that no one is going to buy this brand because anybody under 40 thinks it's a horrible brand.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do. So, what are you going to do to change this? And their answer to me was, well, by the time they're 63, they're going to want this brand. And I looked at them and I said, no, they're not going to want this brand. You don't understand. It's not in their consideration set. And they fired me. And I've often thought about, people when you work with them, and they've been a client of mine for quite some time and everything like that. And they said that I didn't understand their business. And I was like, it doesn't make any difference if I understand your business or not. Your customers have written you off. And so to make a long story short, about 12 years later, they went bankrupt.
Yeah. And that's a great story because a lot of buyers, and I'm sure this happens with entrepreneurs as well, you have an idea, you have an innovation that you personally think is great.
Yep.
You decide to push that onto the market. And the market says, I never asked for this. Like, no thanks. When there's a lot more success of taking the time to understand your customer and then developing what they're already asking you for.
Right.
So it happens all the time in buying, right? Electronics, it happened when I was over there. Some fancy pitch, someone says, yeah, this is crazy. It does all these things. Let's buy it. And then it's a dud. When reality, they just want a cheaper HDMI cable. You know what I mean? Like that could be the innovation that you need because of what customers are telling you they need. So, yeah.
The thing is, I mean, I'm not saying you have to listen to everything the customer says because some of the things aren't very focused. I mean, sometimes the customers don't know what they want, but
yeah.
The thing is many times by just looking at their behavior, in other words, what is their behavior? What do they want? What do they want in a product is the most important thing. It's by far the most important thing because people buy brands or they buy stuff to do jobs. I mean, you buy a brand or you buy a product to do something. It may be a functional job. In other words, I need a drill to drill a hole. You don't really need a drill. You need a hole. You know what I mean? But that's the job you want. Or it could be for status, or it could be for emotion, but it could be a lot of different things, but people buy brands, they buy products to do a job.
Yep.
And you just have to figure out what the job is they want done and then offer that product. And
Yep.
I used to tell that to clients all the time, and they'd look, oh, it's not that simple, there's emotional things. I said, you can't figure out all that stuff. The only thing you can do is figure out what jobs they want to have done.
Yep.
So I love your story. I always ask people their, stories like this, and you check the box on that one big time. So good. All right, now I've got the final thing that we want to talk about, and this is kind of like a fun thing. So don't take it seriously or anything like that. It's called underrated or overrated. Okay, underrated or overrated. So I give you something, and you tell me if you feel as though it's underrated or overrated. Okay, and it's real simple. The first one is Arkansas Razorback football team in 2023, underrated or overrated?
And that's a tough one. I'm not from Arkansas, even though I went to that school. So I feel like I have to be loyal in some regard, or do I take the objective lens? I would say, based on the last 5 years as an average, we're typically overrated going into a season. If you just that's my honest opinion. But my wife, who's a native Arkansan, will always say underrated until we win a national championship. So I'm getting, there's two sides of the coin there, but Myles Robinson says likely overrated.
Well, your coach Pittman he's a really breath of fresh air. I really do like to hear him talk. He's very folksy and down to earth and everything. I like your coach a lot. Let's just leave it at that.
He's great for the team.
He is great for the team. He really is. I enjoy his press conferences when he's ever on. Oh, darn, we could have almost gotten him, but we didn't.
Yeah.
I do enjoy him. All right, so the next one is brick and mortar retailing, underrated or overrated?
Yeah, that's a great one. I would say underrated because long term, I think the brick and mortar locations become fulfillment centers, which feed into the delivery speeds of a .com centric world. So I would say percent of business probably overrated. Long term, you're going to see a flux to .com, and we're already seeing that. But from a strategic advantage standpoint, especially from Walmart's, I would say underrated.
Okay, you just brought up something, and my mind just went somewhere, as it does from time to time. I know that the pandemic and all the closing and everything had a huge impact on Walmart stores and everything. But I saw the other day I was at Walmart, and where you have those pickup places for the things, they were full.
Yeah.
You think that? I mean, I know that initially it had a negative impact because your sales were down and everything like that because of the pandemic, but long term, do you think that more people are now moving towards, having you do the shopping and then they just pick it up and everything, and it's kind of like a blessing in disguise?
Yeah, absolutely. Customers want convenience, and so if you're traveling home from soccer practice and you don't want to spend the hour getting your kids out, getting a cart, shopping in the madness that a Sunday Walmart Supercenter is, it's a lot easier to schedule an appointment and have someone just drop off the groceries in the trunk of your car. So I would say pickup today is exploding. It's growing in my business at a very rapid rate. It's growing around Walmart. I think that's just going to continue to grow as convenience becomes more and more of a consideration set in our customers' minds.
Yeah, I was just shocked. I mean, it was a Friday, and it was Friday afternoon, and a lot of people probably got paid and they were grocery shop or didn't want to grocery shop. But I mean, the whole thing was filled, the pickup thing, with cars and baskets and people rushing back and forth, stuffing stuff in people's cars. Yep. I mean, it was just like, I was like, this is crazy. I had to be 12 cars there, and we're a small. Shippensburg is like 5,000 people. Now the Walmart is outside of Shippensburg, but I mean, it's not it's a superstore, but it's not one of the big super stores. But for that many people, I couldn't believe that they had that many, pickup things going. It was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, we have internal metrics that we're held against relative to how efficient our modulars are drawn to facilitate quick picking times by our associates. So we have a ton of metrics. It's called a nil pick. What percent of the time when someone orders something can we get it the first walk past the aisle? So
Really?
it's something that we measure weekly, that we report on. Challenging in books when you have 1,000 items and the associate might have 30 seconds to find that book. So we have to do a lot of modular flow discussion. How do we make things very obvious in a sea of books for the customers to find and for our associates to find? But very important pillar of the future of Walmart is that pick up today channel.
Okay. All right. I've learned so much. I've learned so much in everything. I can't believe it. I think, I think that the thing that I've learned the most today is just how, I guess, infused something like retailing and technology have become. I mean, it's just amazing to me what we've talked about. We've talked about audiobooks, we've talked about digital, we've talked about IT, we've talked about AI, we've talked about all these things, and all of these things are coalescing right into not only retailing, but into the book business as well.
Yep.
So do you feel challenged or energized or intimidated or all of the above and none of the above?
I feel energized. So like I said, I'm a change agent. I love running towards the fire and figuring out how to put it out. So as we think about innovations happening, they're inevitable and they're just indicators of what customers are wanting. So kind of going back to, what is the customer trying to solve? Is it convenience? Is it the medium on which they digest content, either digitally or physically? Whatever that is, we have to adapt and we have to be ready to fight for that customer, because if we don't give them what they need, they're going to find somebody else. And that's how companies go out of business. And that's how you lose your relevancy in the market. So not afraid of it, excited by it.
Good. You'll do well. You'll do well in this world. All right. So I think we're going to end there. And
all right.
I want to thank you, Myles, for a really informative show. Our audience, our students, and all the others on our platform are going to enjoy this video a great deal. And if you ever need, if you're ever up this way in Shippensburg, PA, I don't know if you ever will be, but if you are, feel free to drop by Shippensburg University in the Diller Center. We're all entrepreneurial all the time, and we'd love to have you come in, and we can do something live, not just on Zoom. Yeah. We can do something live, which would be fun.
Yeah, that'd be great. And then if any students in your class, feel free to find me on LinkedIn, ask me a question. I'm an open book, so I'll give career guidance. Hey, what is working at Walmart actually like, if that were to interest anyone in one of your classes. But I'm an open resource, so feel free to reach out directly.
Well, thank you. And I can assure you that you'll probably get numerous resumes, because we've got people who are, we've always got people who are out there looking for jobs and challenges and things like that. So you may get a lot of resumes from people in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, happy to provide insight, what Walmart's looking for, resume guidance, all that stuff.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for participating. We really do appreciate it, and best of luck in the future. And I'll look forward to your next. I'm going to go to my Walmart right now and look at all the assortment and everything right now and see what you got.
Send me some feedback. Hopefully the products are all on the shelf in the right spot.
Well, I'm going to look. Take you up on that. When you talked about the political titles and everything, I'm going to start going there and see what those political titles are.
Make sure you buy the book when you see it. All right.
Yeah, I don't have to read it. I just have to buy it.
You have to buy it. That's right.
Just buy it. Don't read it. Okay. Well, thank you, Myles. I do appreciate it, and hopefully we'll stay in touch and talk again soon. Okay.
You're welcome. Thanks.